An American couple from Lansing, Michigan has been arrested in Mexico for apparently committing fraud over $110,000 against a Mexican resort. Let's see what they did and just how stupid this might have been. Yeah, welcome back into the channel, Rockstars. This story is pretty crazy. So a married couple around 60 years old from Lansing, Michigan, recently traveled to Mexico where they have a timeshare, and when they arrived in Mexico, they were immediately arrested over a dispute on charges having to do with that timeshare. And I wanted to bring this story up to my reselling community and to the greater community of everyone for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to talk about it here in just a second. But the rest of the story goes like this. Over a year ago, this couple, I guess, it sounds to me like they purchased a timeshare. If you don't know what a timeshare is, you can go Google it. Essentially, you pay for the right to use a resort or a hotel or a vacation rental for certain amounts of time every year, and you pay X amount of money every month, and you get to use that timeshare in that hotel during your set aside weeks and months. So for people that go to the same places, it can work out, but the majority of timeshares are a scam. I'm going to tell you that right now. Literally, there are lawyers that prosecute timeshare swindles and scams because they are just really preying on people. There's very rarely times where timeshares make sense. Even if you use a certain resort or hotel all the time, you love to go there 2, 3, 4 times a year, you're somebody who's got money, it doesn't matter. They still don't make sense. It always makes sense to just book something when you're ready to go and, you know, be done with it. Don't sign contracts, don't pay money, don't pay upkeep, maintenance, fees, all this sort of stuff. Timeshares grew super popular in the 90s, and that's because people didn't know about it, they weren't educated, and they got scammed. They got tied into doing stuff and signing contracts that they did not belong signing, and that's just my opinion on timeshare. So let's move forward. This couple had a timeshare down in Mexico. They paid for it. Apparently, they had charged up over $115,000 worth of their fees, their memberships, their hotel, probably charges to the rooms, to the stuff. I don't know how often they used it, how many years they used it, but that's a pretty hefty timeshare, because I know of a timeshare a friend of mine had in Key West that he only paid a few $1,000s a year for, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year. That would have took tons of years to charge up that amount for. I know people out in Colorado that had a ski resort, they paid like $10,000 a year, $15,000 a year, $100,000 in charges is nuts. This was a year ago. They go back to Michigan, they dispute the charges. There's even reports that on social media, the wife disputed the charges and bragged about it on Facebook or on social media that she had had a dispute with this resort, that she was going to show them, and she disputed the charges on their Amex card. Now, anybody who's never had an American Express card, especially an American Express business card, which I would assume, pretty good assumption that this is an American Express business card because of the unset limits to be able to charge over $100,000. Generally, they don't give that to people personally unless you're very wealthy, which could be possible. They generally give that to like business lines, like something like my business or somebody that does a fair amount of revenue, a couple $100,000 a year, $500,000 to $1 million. They'll give you a $100,000 line of credit. There's no preset limit, but they will cut you off eventually. Generally, it's around that number. So they dispute these charges. The Mexican company that owns these resorts is actually based out of here in Florida, in Miami, I think, or Fort Lauderdale. But when they travel back to Mexico, the company realizes it's them, which I don't know why, if you're in a dispute with a Mexican company, even if they're based in Florida, you would go to Mexico outside of our country with what's going on right now. Whether or not you're a Trump supporter or political whatever, we are not exactly in the best graces of the Mexican government and the Mexican people. They are not fans of the Americans right now, not a lot of them. And not a good idea to be traveling back when you're in the middle of a $100,000 dispute. So the Mexican company thinks they're out $100 and some thousand. The couple feels like they were scammed and swindled by a timeshare company and signing up for something they didn't read or signing up for something they're not getting. Whatever the dispute is, it is definitely civil, and it could be, if they did a fraudulent chargeback, could be criminal, especially here in the United States, but obviously in Mexico they're going to go for them. And they were arrested 21 days ago, and they've been in jail for 3 weeks. And as far as I can see, they don't have a trial date set, and that the government has given the resort 6 months to further investigate the charges, what happened, the contract, and to come up with some kind of solution or resolution, meaning this couple could sit in jail for 6 more months. Now, crazy story, their daughter, who lives in Michigan, is a survivor of Dr. Larry Nassar, who is the Olympic and college NCAA doctor who was working on some of the most famous gymnasts in the world. He was, of course, arrested and convicted and serving the rest of his life, rightfully so, in jail for being a P word, a P-E-D-O word. Can't say that on YouTube or you get in trouble. I think everybody knows the story of Dr. Larry Nassar. Their daughter, this couple's daughter, was in sports and was a survivor of him, and she has now contacted lawyers. She's trying to contact the State Department and their local congressmen and senators to work out, including the embassy there in Mexico, to work out a deal to get her parents out of jail. That's a crazy story. So my first thoughts on this are, did this couple sign something they didn't know what they were signing? And so when they got back, they did, a chargeback, which may or may not be legal, depending on the wording. That would be contractual law. They would have to go to court, and I don't know how the Mexican government or the Mexican court systems work. But here in America, if you go to Miami and you sign up for a timeshare and you get home in a week and you realize it's not what you thought it was, or maybe it was predatory, you have to go to court and you have to sue them. You have to fight with them. You can't just charge it back, or it can be a fraudulent chargeback. Charging stuff back is supposed to be meant for when your card gets stolen or when there's fraudulent charges, like somebody steals your identity. It's not supposed to be because you do business with somebody and then the business goes south. If I go into a nightclub or a restaurant or something and I charge up a $200 or $300 bill and I have to pay it and I'm drunk or I'm drinking and I get home the next day and I go, oh my God, I'm going to charge this back. They took advantage of me. That's not what credit card chargebacks are for. That's fraud, right? If I purchase something off of you, off of the internet, you and I start talking on Instagram and you agree to sell me a product and I pay you $500 with my Amex card and you ship me something and it shows up and it's junk, well, you have tried to scam me, and so then that would be allowed to do a chargeback. Legally, that's what it's intended for. If you do not provide the service or product that I'm paying for. Same thing in a nightclub in Vegas. This happens a lot in Vegas. I've heard of these stories. I've seen it. People go into a nightclub, they charge up $500, $1,000, they get drunk, they don't know what they're doing. They go home and they're like, oh, this is bull crap, charge it back. Well, the nightclub provided you the services and the alcohol that they charged for and what food or whatever it is that you had, the dancers, who knows, right? That's illegal to charge back because you didn't know what you were doing or you didn't know what you were signing or you didn't know what you were getting into. If I buy a product from you on the internet for $500 because I think I can sell it for $1,000 and I get it and a week later I realize it's not worth what I think it was worth, well, that's my problem. I shouldn't be charging it back to you. And that's why I bring this up for my reseller friends, because I sell a lot of lots and a lot of merchandise directly to people. And I'm very weary of taking credit card payments for this reason. Not because I intend on scamming someone and I don't want them to be protected. Not at all. I use PayPal all the time because it protects everybody. It's because a lot of people are just bad people and they try to use credit cards as a way to hold it over your head that if you don't bend to their will, not providing product or service, but not doing whatever they want and bending over backwards, they're going to file a chargeback, a credit card chargeback. And credit card companies almost always take the buyer's side because that is their customer. They don't care about the seller. They don't care about the nightclub. They don't care about the resort. They don't care about me. They care about their person using their credit card. And generally speaking, they will side with the buyer. I've had chargebacks on eBay with blatant fraud, blatant people lying, like in messages I have the lies, and they've still been rewarded their chargeback money. And I would have to literally become small claims court, where I would have to sue them. Over $20, $50, it's not worth it. If you try to scam me out of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, well, yeah, you better bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna come and sue you in small claims, and I'm gonna force you to give me that money back, or I'm gonna take you to court. And that's just, sort of the way that I've done it, but I try to avoid credit cards at all costs. And again, my reputation speaks for itself. I don't sell junk. I don't sell people crap material or services or whatever. If there's a problem, if there's a legitimate problem, I will work it out with you. I'll send you more merchandise. I'll get you better stuff, or I'll refund you. You don't have to go to the credit card companies, which also cost extra money as a chargeback fee if I have to fight it. It's $20 through PayPal if you do a chargeback. I don't know what it is elsewhere. I think eBay has a fee as well. But if you're somebody who's buying with a credit card, please know what you're buying, read what you're buying, read what you're talking about, know what you're doing, and especially if you're spending $110,000, geez, I mean, my Lord, who goes to Mexico, spends $110,000 on a timeshare, on an Amex card, which obviously they're fairly wealthy or well-to-do if they have a $100,000 limit on a credit card, goes home, decides, I want to charge this back because I didn't know what I was doing, then goes back to Mexico to visit that resort, or at least the country, while you're in the middle of a $100,000 plus dispute on a credit card, knowing that the country, or at least the very basic resort and company, are after you and probably reported you to the police, yeah, you're going to have yourself a big problem. Going back to Mexico was a dumb idea, especially in 2025. So that's the story of how 2 Michigan natives are now facing serious jail time in Mexico. And basically, I would imagine if they can come up with $100,000 and pay it back to the credit card, off the credit card, that they'll be released and let go. But this could be a very expensive lesson for them. The other problem is if you're doing business with a company that's in another country, you don't have the legal avenues that we have here to sue them and go after them. Now, this particular company is based out of Florida, so they definitely could go to a Florida court and try, here in Florida and sue them. And that's lucky for them, if they have to end up spending the $100,000 to get out of jail and then sue them later. But I don't think they can win that, because it just sounds to me like they signed a contract without fully reading it and understanding what they were getting into. What do you guys think? Do you agree with that? Do you think that they were at the wrong, they were mistaken, or do you think that the Mexican company took advantage of them? And should they have charged back the $100,000, or should they just, sucked it up? Should they have tried to file a lawsuit against the company here in Florida? Let me know your thoughts on it, your comments, concerns, everything down below. As always, I appreciate it. And take that as a word of warning, whether you're a buyer or a seller, whether you're the person providing the services or not. There's always a risk when it comes to using credit cards on either side with chargebacks and financial crimes and fraud and lawsuits and all that stuff. Just make sure you protect yourself and be careful. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Come back and watch future videos. If you hit the little bell, it'll turn the notifications on. You'll be notified only when I post a new video. You won't be spammed. And I would appreciate seeing you right back here on the channel for the next video. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.